third, West Germany fourth, Kenya in fifth place, sixth Jamaica, and that was another piece of splendid British 4x4 meter running. This is a good squad. We've got some good athletes right down to number 6 or number 7, and they've really done extremely well.
The appetite for this year's World Championships in Rome, in which we hope this young man, Steve Cram, will be bringing some glory for Great Britain. He runs now in an 8-man field over 1,000 metres in the stadium, where he came very close to the best ever time in the world, 2 minutes 12.18, set by Seb Coe, and obviously holds the track record and the second best time ever. Steve Cram, back after resting for a week following his disappointment in Nice, and looking for a good run today. Very anxious to deflate any talk of a possible attack on that world best time, of course, which one or two of the newspapers were mentioning. I think probably because they saw James Mays, the perennial shadow to Steve Cram, the pacemaker, the American there all in white, in the field. Lorenzo Brown, the other American, is in second place. Collard, the Frenchman, third. Peter Elliott also in the field there. You see him in the white top and red shorts, and Cram just following him through. 1,000 metres, 2.5 laps of the track.
I'm sorry to correct you, Alan, but that's not Collard actually in third. It's another Frenchman, but not the man that actually won down there in Nice, so I don't know who it is at the moment.
Well, there was some confusion about this. We were told Collard would be running. We think that's another French runner called Gerard, but we were told that Collard would be there, but now we get the close-up. Steve is quite right. Cram following the pace being set by the two Americans. Mays in front. In second place, Brown. Elliott is third. Cram is fourth.
And it's 54.02 first lap with Cram in 55, and that's about a 2:15 pace for 1,000 metres.
Gary Marlowe, the Bracknell athlete, just behind Steve Cram in the blue vest, and that's Mark Kirk, the Irishman, moving through as they approach the bell. Mays looks behind him and gets ready to step aside. Lorenzo Brown, the American 800-metre runner, will take over the lead. Cram just behind Elliott. So it's Mays, Brown, Elliott who begins his move now, and Cram will follow. He's had a week of improving his golf swing and his snooker potting ability, and he comes back refreshed and wanting to win here in front of his home crowd. Marlowe, number 2, just behind him, also running well here and having the confidence to follow Cram as he attacks Peter Elliott, the leader, on the final bend. Elliott, who won impressively in Belfast and then was second in a good race in Rome, determined to try and take the scalp of Steve Cram here. Cram tightens up and looks to attack Elliott. He has all the home support. Elliott comes back at him again. A real race to the line this, but Cram wins it. Elliott second. Marlowe was third. 2 minutes 17.35 the time. A long way outside of record times, but as I said during the race, all Steve Cram wanted was to get back, get that competitive feeling again and win. Peter Elliott ran a very good race there and really gave Steve Cram the finish I think he would really have wanted there, because he had to fight very hard in the home straight to win that one. Steve Ovett.
Yes, it was a good race from both of those boys there, but I don't know. I don't think I'd be that happy if I was Steve. He doesn't pull away that fast from someone like Peter, and over 1,000 metres, if he's run 2:12, you'd think that he'd pull away a little bit quicker, but it's early days yet for Steve, and it's not far to go now for the World Championships.
But he's obviously concerned, and Steve Cram is the first to admit it, about his form and the fact that he's not as quick and as strong at the end of races as he would want to be. He says there's no problem that he can identify easily. He's going well, going exceptionally well in training. He's had no serious injury problems to speak of, but it's just not there when he comes to the track. As Steve said, he won today, and it was a battle to win against Elliott, but I'm sure he'll be certainly pleased to win, but still looking for more. Whitbread. But now the men's 800 metres. There are 12 men altogether in this field, and perhaps some may feel that's a little bit too big, but for Johnny Gray, the top American, the world's fastest in 1987, he's sensibly keeping well out of trouble there towards the back of the field. You can see him in the orange shorts. Going out in front is Brian Theriot of the United States, being pursued by number 12 Stanley Redwine, who was second to Gray in the American Championships a few weeks ago, and therefore takes his place in the World Championships. Well, I was saying that Gray is keeping out of trouble at the back, but that's ridiculous. He's well off the pace, being set up in front by his two American compatriots, Theriot and Redwine, and Steve Crabb there suddenly. Steve Crabb suddenly seemed to be pushed and barged right out of the inside lane, and he's out of the race. Steve Crabb ran a magnificent race over 1,500 metres a week ago in Oslo. He'll be very disappointed about that. As Theriot, meanwhile, still leads from Stanley Redwine, with Collard, the Frenchman, who was also a winner in Oslo, up there in the first three. And moving through is Abdibili, the Somalian, into third place. What a surprise that must have been for Crabb, who had high hopes of doing well here. So it's left to the other Brits in the field now. Tony Morrell just on the right-hand side of the picture. And number one, Gary Marlowe, the Bracknell athlete, all in blue, running really well. So Redwine leads, Collard second, Marlowe third, Abdibili fourth, Tony Morrell fifth, and there's David Sharp in the yellow vest of Jarrow coming up quickly. Redwine into the home straight, Collard second, Marlowe's having the race of his life here, and Morrell coming wide on the outside to challenge them all. Collard is tying up, so is Redwine. Has Morrell timed it perfectly? It looks as though he has. Yes! Morrell wins it, Redwine third, just behind Abdibili. 1 minute 45.57, and what a win that is for Tony Morrell, the Northeastern athlete. Well, the 3A's indoor champion, who we haven't seen a great deal of outdoors so far this summer, really took on a risk there. He had to come very, very wide of Gary Marlowe to have a look at what was going on in front of him. He was prepared to do that and still had the strength to overtake those four men in front of him. Superb finish by Morrell, and a very satisfying win for him. And that'll do his hopes of a place in Rome no harm at all.
Tremendous personal best there for Tony Morrell. Personal best also for Marlowe, Herbert and Steele, all under 1:47.
A few weeks back, Tony Morrell, what a marvellous victory he had last Friday night at Crystal Palace. Jim Matten runs as another of the American competitors here, along with Randy Moore. Gary Marlowe, the third of the English lineup. Jim McKeon also in there, we suspect to help to make the pace, which won't please Steve Cram terribly. An athlete who has some very strong views about pacemaking in general and doesn't really want one in this race. He just wants a good race. But of course, when you're an athlete of the caliber of Steve Cram, and when you've suffered 2 defeats in big races this season, which he's done in Prague and in Nice, you know that every time you set foot on the track, there is pressure and there are high expectations from everyone. They break out of lanes here, and Lorenzo Brown of the United States, looking all around him, has gone out in front. He wears number 4. Right behind him, Jim Matten of the United States in 5. So the Americans running this as a team. Tony Morrell back in 6th place. Gary Marlowe 3rd at the moment, and Ray Levitra, the guest runner, separating those two. It's Steve Cram towards the rear of the field, keeping an eye, let's be hopeful, on what's going on rather than making a move at this stage. Brown leads, Maton second, Randy Moore also in third, and Marlowe the best placed of the English competitors as they reach the bell in 52.69, so a good time.
And Steve Cram, in fact, a second off that exactly, Alan.
And Cram moves through to 4th. So the Americans in the first 2 places as Marlowe, the Bracknell athlete, moves through to split them. Cram follows him, and the long-legged, long-striding Tony Morrell, who produced a very, very dramatic finish a week ago to win at Crystal Palace, he's in 5th. Brown leads, Cram moves through to 2nd. Morrell follows him, and there's a faller there. One of the American athletes fell off the final bend. Brown knows that Cram is on his shoulder, and Cram is looking determined here. Morrell coming very fast and very wide on the outside. Cram has seen him and responded. Now has Cram the strength to hold on? This time I think he will. Cram's back. Morrell in 2nd place and Marlowe 3rd. A 1-2-3 for England, and the confidence will return for Steve Cram, a winner once again. And he had to produce a very strong finish to hold off the challenge from Tony Morrell, who a week ago won his race in just such a finish as that. Well, Tony Campbell, I think that will make Steve Cram a much happier man tonight. He was well placed throughout. He had the strength to take on Lorenzo Brown here, but more importantly, the strength to finish strongly under pressure.
Well, I'd have to agree. Steve Cram's definitely coming back from a little adversity, and he's looking good. He's taking the lead over Lorenzo Brown, the fourth-place finisher in our national championships, who barely got beat out of a place for the United States championship team going to Rome by David Mack of the United States. But here comes Cram, and he's looking good, and just goes on, uses his form, his technique, and basically experiences keep a cool head and to go ahead and just take the victory.
Exceptional time, 1 minute 47.09. Morrell in second place and Marlowe third.
And the British Challenge led by Chris McGeorge, who will be running in lane 2 wearing number 24. There's Chris McGeorge, who formerly at Loughborough University, and of course Jack Bruckner used to be there, and I'm sure Jack will be keeping a careful eye on his mate in this particular race.
Yes, I will do, Peter. I train regularly with Chris McGeorge, and he's had a number of injury problems over recent years after a tremendous performance as a junior. So he's coming back to form this year, and it'll be interesting to see how he gets on tonight.
So that's McGeorge in lane 2 wearing number 24. Spread right across the track. Look also for Gary Marlowe right on the outside wearing 178 in his first big race of the year. The Americans, of course, with something to prove. Thomas Johnson wearing number 23 straight off the lead there. He's the man who got elbowed out by Eakin Billy in the 800 metres at Birmingham, and he's going to make sure that he's well clear of the action. He's chased by number 21, Charlton Hamer of the USA, another promising youngster, also in those blue colours, and Gary Marlowe just tucked in behind them. Chris McGeorge keeping back a fast 200 metres, 25.66. Will Chris be liking this pace, Jack?
I think he'll probably finding it a bit quick, actually. It's a long time since Chris went through 400 metres or even 200 metres that quick in a race, so I don't know how he'll handle the fast pace, and I can't imagine them keeping this up all the way around. It's very quick.
So still this fast pace being maintained by Johnson and Hamer and 22 Doug Heron, with the Spaniard Teofilio Benito in fourth place now, 53.08, so quite a useful first lap. All bunched in together though, and certainly both McGeorge and Marlowe, the two leading British athletes, have got a hope at the moment, but it's the three Americans tracked by the Spaniard Teofilio Benito, who's done 146.6, a useful man. There's still Thomas Johnson, personal best of 146.21, but now being overtaken. It's Benito of Spain. A little bit of elbowing there, but Johnson is strong enough to go with him. But George at the moment hasn't made much progress. He's just beginning to ease up now, just on the right of the picture. And it's the Spaniard who's struck out for home at just under 200 metres to go there now. With the Americans, the four Americans all behind him. Terence Harrington is number 44, who looks as if he may have the speed. He ran in that 1,000 metres with Sharp and Cram and Morrell. And here he comes in. It looks like he's going to take it. Number 44, Terence Harrington. But George, though, finishes very well indeed to come up to contest second place.
To face the distance at which he has the second fastest time in history. And this, the lineup. Peter Elliott, really unlucky, I think, that he didn't get more credit for that performance in Oslo. Inevitably, the major headlines went to Cram and Martin and McColgan. But Peter Elliott, a terrific run by him as well. Abdi Bile, the world champion, the man who took Cram's crown in Rome, is in there again. Tony Morrell in very good form at the moment as well. Peter Elliott, the world silver medalist over 800 metres and Commonwealth bronze, finally emerged from the shadow of Coe and Cram and Steve Ovett, and very, very close himself to winning that dream mile. Indeed, I believe that if Bile hadn't made the tactical mistake of leaving that gap on the inside, allowing Cram to come through, then Elliott would indeed have won it. Our third fastest man ever over 800 metres behind Coe and Cram. There's Abdi Bile, the world champion, who covered his last 1,000 metres in winning that title in Rome in 2 minutes 16, which, as you'll see from the world all-time list, is a pretty respectable time in itself, and that was at the end of a 1,500 metres race. Seb Coe's virtually untouchable world record still standing, or world best, and Cram second on the all-time list. Bile not behind the correct line. 2.5 laps of the track, the men's 1,000 metres. And the great fascination, of course, Steve Ovett, is in this second clash of Cram, Elliott and Belay.
Yes, but I think the rest of the field, let's not take the rest of the field away. They are class athletes, every single one of these boys. And as we saw, a fairly casual start from Belay. He always does this, rushes to the back of the field and then decides to charge through on the last lap. But we're seeing there that there's some top boys, even at the back of the field, as we say this, Alan.
Belay, I'm sure, as he did in Oslo, will keep an eye on Cram above all else. Gary Marlowe is in there as pacemaker. He's leading at the moment. Ibrahim Okash, the Somalian athlete, naturally a great pal and training partner of Abdi Belay, is in second place, all in white. Then Cram is third, Elliott fourth.
Well, it seems to be symptomatic that the pacemaker in all these races tonight goes off quite mad and the rest of the fields don't really chase him. So we have got a fairly competitive race here without the need of a pacemaker, I think.
53 at 400 metres, so well outside the world best times. But once again, this is a race, not a race against the clock. Elliott is sticking to the shoulder of Steve Cram, and Joseph Chizire, the Kenyan, suddenly decides that's his moment, with the bell approaching, to go into the lead, and Cram has followed him and Elliott has followed him.
Well, at that stage I think you saw that Cram was the man to make the right move, and he really did. He poised, pushed himself forward, and I think he looks in control of this race at the moment, Alan.
Chizire leads, Cram second, Elliott third. Ari Sohonen, a very good Finnish athlete, has moved through to fourth, number 7 there. And Abdi Belay now begins to make his move. A little late perhaps. Marlowe, the pacemaker, is overtaken. And Chizire stretches away and has got an important bit of daylight. Elliott is closing on him, and then the big two behind him, Cram and Belay all together. It's a repeat of Oslo almost. Belay comes hard on the outside, and again the inside opens up for Cram. It's amazing. Elliott's trapped between the two of them again. Terrific finish. Belay looks strong, and Belay makes it. Cram second, Elliott third, Chizire fourth. One each in the great confrontation, you could call it, I suppose. Cram won a week ago. Belay gets it this time, and to rub a little salt into the wounds, he's beaten Cram on his home patch, although of course he'd regard Gateshead as his real home, but Crystal Palace certainly. McKean, the European and Commonwealth silver medalist, lines up in this second heat of the men's 800 metres. Steve. He looks, and certainly the 800 metres final is going to be one of the events of the weekend. He just stretches away from Marlowe, looking immensely strong, that powerful build, and he comes home in one. All-time greats in the middle distances in the sport. Tony Morell, who runs for Wolverhampton and Bilston, but like Cram, he's from the northeast. Steve Hurd, he could be a surprise packet. He's only run a couple of races over this distance, better known as a 400-metre man, and if it's a slow run first lap, he can't be counted out. David Sharp, the world junior champion and European indoor champion.
He will want to win.
We've talked about Olympic qualifying times. We did in the previous event. It certainly is not a factor here. We have a dozen men who are inside the Olympic qualifying standard more than in any other event. This, one of Britain's most successful events ever. We won medals at the last 2 Olympic Games, and British athletes have been in the top 2 in World Championships, European Championships and Commonwealth Games for many, many years. The start of one of the most eagerly awaited races then of these Olympic trials. 2 laps of the track, the men's 800 metres. And Tony Morrell, in the white vest and red shorts with that long raking stride, has decided to take it out hard, and that's really going to make a race of it. Tom McKean has covered him immediately, and 38 there, Martin Steele with his bid for glory also joins them at the front, and a little bit of a clash then as Martin Steele forced himself into the lead. He clashed elbows with McKean. Steele leads then. Morrell second, McKean third, Cram is fourth. And the 25-year-old surely knows that it's his only hope for any kind of glory here. He's got out and will lead at the bell, but is sure to be overtaken. 50.46 at the bell, John Walker.
Well, this is very fast. This is going to help Steve Cram, I feel. He's got to be in front with 300 to go. He's got to be in front of McKean. He really can't afford to spot him because McKean, I feel, is the better straight runner of the 2.
Steele leads, Morrell second, McKean third, Cram fourth. Here goes Morrell, McKean has followed him, Cram is on his tail. 200 metres to go. It's Morrell, McKean and Cram, and those 3 have got away from the rest. Steve Hurd moves into fourth. McKean hits the front. Morrell looking cool, Cram ready to pounce, and Steve Hurd coming hard up the shoulder of the bend. But Cram it is who hits the front, and Cram looking magnificent. And just look at Steve Hurd challenging Tom McKean for second place. Cram wins it. McKean second, Hurd third, Sharp fourth, Morrell fifth. 1:44.16. And the man hardly seems to be drawing breath. Steve Cram is not only going to Seoul over 800 metres, he is going to be a contender for a big medal there as well on that performance. He's beaten Tom McKean, who, like any athlete, will not like the taste of defeat, but of course he's on his way anyway. And Steve Hurd, what a marvellous effort by him to come through third, a man who's relatively inexperienced at this, sitting for a pretty fast pace as well. Egan Billy of Great Britain, Steve Hurd, who finished a marvellous third in the Olympic trials, didn't quite make selection. A couple of very good Americans. John Marshall there is the man who will set the pace. Steve Cram, who will go to the Olympic Games over 1,500 metres. David Sharp, the world junior champion. And Sabir of Italy, who was second to Tom McKean in the 1987 European Cup. Tom McKean should have been in this lineup, but I gather he had a hamstring problem warming up there with Sabir, the Italian, and Crabb all in white. Men's 800 metres, 2 laps of the track. And the American John Marshall in the red vest and black shorts has been asked to take them through the first lap in around 50-51 seconds. Stanley Redwine, the other American, all in white, following him. Egan Billy in the grey, nearest to the camera, running on the curb in third place, who also found that he just didn't have time to get fit enough for Olympic selection. And then he slows immediately and is now with David Sharp towards the rear of the field. So John Marshall here and Stanley Redwine, the 2 Americans, leading the pace. Number 3 in third place is Gary Marlowe, who made the Olympic trials final. Steve Crabb a little bit back off the pace at the moment, but now moving through as the bell approaches. And it's slower than they were asked for, 52.
Yeah, but the boys are having quite a good outing here. Steve Hurd a little bit disappointed, I guess, having had such a great season, but just missing out on an Olympic place. He's going to have a killer of a finish here. Steve Crabb, of course, using this for preparation, for speed preparation for 1,500 metres. But don't forget our late waiter, head waiter, David Sharp, who's always very, very hot over the last 150.
Marshall gives way to Stanley Redwine, the world indoor finalist, the 27-year-old American who was a quarter-finalist in the World Championships in Rome and in good form, ran 1:45.2 a couple of weeks back. And he leads them into the home straight. Marshall is still in there, and Crabb coming hard. So too is David Sharp in the yellow vest. And the Americans are going to share the spoils between them here, because although he was only there really to set the pace, Marshall was right up on the line with Stanley Redwine. And then in third place, Steve Crabb, with David Sharp probably fourth. 1:47.32 the winning time.
Kilometres, we'll get the check there. Just a word to you. Don't forget the London Marathon entries close on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. You can get your entry forms from any branch of the Trustee Savings Bank, and they're hoping this time that 30,000 competitors will toe the line on April the 23rd next year. So if you want to run in the London Marathon or stand any chance by getting a form into the ballot, do so in the next 3 days.
Just saw a cutaway. Sorry to talk cross pictures, but that was Monighetti and Di Costello in the second group, and they are about 300 yards back off this leading group. Two Australians, Monighetti and Di Costello.
Just wonder if Charlie Spedding's going through another bad patch here. Sala leading, Nakayama second, Borden third. And the pace?
Well, they had a really fast kilometre in the middle of the last 5 kilometres, but they slowed then, and they began to slow badly. And that 5,000 metres was 15:41, but I figure the race is going to be starting fairly soon. The Kanga and Spedding have dropped off the group. Charlie did ever so well to get up with that after that break, but he's suffering for it now, and I think it's because Sala and Nakayama have decided to put their foot down. But again, Wakehuru, he's just drifted off the pace again, and he hasn't done anything about it.
So we're down to 4 in the leading group. Kanga's got problems, having been up there for so long. The man from Djibouti's, Sala. Then the Kenyan, then the Japanese, and the Italian.
It would be wonderful if Djibouti could get their first ever Olympic medal. Ahmed Salah's done so much at world-class marathon running. As I said before, he's the eldest son of 9, of a nomad father who was killed by raiders, he himself having done his fair share of raiding before that. His father had 2 wives, but being the eldest son, he was the favoured one. Sent to school in Djibouti, and after 10 years as working as a waiter, discovered his ability to run, went in the army, where he's now an army officer, and he's a paratrooper and a tough man, and here he is, one of 4 men. There's only 3 medals going around, but it would be lovely to see tiny Djibouti get on the Olympic map for the first time.
All 3 of those 4, first, second and third in the World Championship in Rome, so we're getting a rerun, plus Nakayama. And I think from memory, it was not far from this stage, Brendan, as they went through St. Peter's Square, that the Kenyan got away.
Well, that's right, and again, from memory, this is exactly what was happening there, because Saleh was beginning to push the pace, and then all of a sudden, when they went around the cobblestones in St. Peter's Square in Rome in the World Championship, Wakehuru accelerated, came out of the bend fastest, and then he was away, and he began to draw away. Now, he's in the same position now. He knows what his race plan is. Nakayama will certainly have a race plan, because he's not surprised to be here, even though he did make 1 effort earlier. And there goes Wakehuru. This is the first time he's even attempted to go in the front.
Actually, they're on the outskirts of the Olympic Park, by the way. They've still got over 5,000 metres to go. But just some 400 metres away on the other side of the road, hidden, well, it's not hidden by the trees from their point of view, but it is hidden from our point of view, is the Olympic Stadium itself, the arena in which they'll finish.
Just a thought, Brendan. these four are really taller than their average of their own countrymen, I think. If you look at them, you know, Wakihura is tall for a Kenyan. Salah's certainly tall for Djibouti. And the Japanese is certainly the tallest Japanese marathon runner here. The Italian is tall. These are approaching, so they're tall, lean and angular marathon runners. Nobody carrying any spare, none of the short chunky guys there. They just seem to be, maybe just by coincidence, but they are tall, angular, ideally built, of course.
And they got long stride as well. But they're just coming along to the point where Rosa Mota made her effort and made her winning effort in the women's marathon, because they come along here with the Han River on the left-hand side and the stadium literally about 400 meters away, and they come down a very sharp incline. It's about the only incline on the course, and it's when they come off the motorway into the Olympic Park area. And that's what happened with Rosa Mota. She made one burst down the hill and got away. And I wonder whether they were watching that, and I wonder whether they're thinking about that. Wakihura, though, David, he looks really strong, doesn't he?
He's not been bothered. He just followed everything. This is the BBC camera in the stands, and just looking out across the road, you can see how close they are to the Olympic Stadium itself. But from their point of view, it's still over 3 miles away, because they swing back into the Olympic Park complex. And Nakayama now is the man in trouble. We're down to 3. So the Japanese is split. And it's the old story. Once you go, you tend to go in a big way.
That's right. Charlie Spedding proved the exception to that rule, but eventually he paid the price. But Wakihura there glanced over his shoulder, saw Nakayama was gone. The race is down to 3. The medals are, I think, safely between those 3, but there's a race to be run yet. Wakihura, though, I must say, has looked really strong in the later stages here. And just imagine if he can win this, another gold medal for Kenya.
Well, a total rerun of the World Championship. First, second and third in the World Championship, now bidding for first, second and third places in the Olympic Games just over 12 months later. Then the Kenyan won. Charlie Spedding and Ikanga together, they're 5th and 6th. Well, in that World Championship, Wakihura, the Kenyan won. Salah in the blue vest finished 2nd for Djibouti, and Bordin of Italy finished 3rd.
And it's 1 altitude man against 2 non-altitude men. Wakihura. Salah. Beginning to press on. Oh, he grabs a sponge. That's the break. But Salah it is from Wakihura from Bordin. This must be back a fair bit.
Inside the last 5,000 meters, probably just under 3 miles to go. And this is a beautifully landscaped sports park they're about to enter, the complex around the arena, and then back out onto the main highway and in through the south gate. And Bordin has got problems. So the Italian now, he finished 3rd in the World Championship. And if the others don't slow, let him back in, looks as if that could happen again. This the area where Rosa Mota got away in the women's marathon. Nakayama in 4th place. But I noticed up front that Salah seemed to push hard then, and he has. Salah's going away.
And I just wonder if they've practiced the Djibouti national anthem. It's one we've never heard. No, the battle's still on. But this is a break by Salah. And the 2 tough men are going away. Salah from Djibouti, from Wakihura. And could this be a reversal of the Rome World Championship.
Well, he sprinted down the hill. That's exactly what Rosa Mota did in the women's marathon. He got about 4 or 5 yards, but I think Wakihuru was in control. Now the pressure's on Saleh now. This is his effort. He's making his effort. He's trying to get away. Wakihuru is responding. He hasn't got the big enough gap to be able to relax about it. And Wakihuru beginning to show the first signs of tiredness now.
Just can't tell what the gap is at the moment. Well, it's not enough yet. And Saleh's got to break the Kenyan here, because Saleh's committed. And that's the reason for the anxious look. If he can just get 15, 20 metres, he can relax again. But at the moment, he's anything but relaxed. He's working very hard, but it's beginning to pay off. Then he's just got to sustain it home. Borden in third place. Well, he knows once again for him, he's just got to keep going to take the bronze, as he did in the World Championship for Italy.
This is a brave effort now by Saleh. He looks to be almost flat out there. He's got a very conservative style. He hardly lifts his feet off the ground at all. And I would think he's really digging deep now. He's beginning to stretch. He's beginning to try to get away. But Wakihuru looks a much stronger athlete. Looks as though, to my mind, as though he'll be able to sprint better. And if they've only got this gap coming to the stadium, well, we're going to see a fantastic race.
Actually, Saleh, with his upper body, seems to be moving better than when you see him in full shot, because he flaps his arms around. Very loose. He's got a very, very low backlift, as a lot of marathon runners have. But his is exceptionally low. Brendan said earlier he's one of life's shufflers. Well, you've got to be economical over 26 miles, 385 yards. Now, Wakihuru has got to start asking himself questions. Looking back, that's usually an ominous sign. Has he settled for the silver? Borden showing the pain. And he's perhaps still got the silver as his target, possibly. Around 2 miles left. A European champion. Well, you know, there's not much between them. Wakihuru's perhaps a fraction closer to Saleh than Borden is to the Kenyan. Through this beautifully landscaped park and around the city of Seoul, costing well over £1 million. Borden comes across to take the sharp right-hand turn. Oh, and this looks decisive now. Wakihuru tried to hold it.
A bit arrogant and spiky. The French have said he's difficult to run with and train with, but he declared days ago that he was going to win the Olympic marathon, despite being beaten in Rome by this man, who's had a marvellous run. But the repercussions in Africa, I think, will be enormous.